They say she comes in the dead of night, when the air is thick with sleep, and your body is too heavy to move. You feel her presence before you see her, an intoxicating warmth, a breath against your skin, and then she whispers your name. She is beautiful. She is terrifying. She is hunger incarnate. And once she's chosen you, there is no escape. For centuries, whispers of this seductive demon have haunted the dreams of the vulnerable. She lures her prey with irresistible beauty, only to drain their very essence, leaving behind empty souls and unanswered questions. But who or what is she? A creature born from superstition, a cautionary tale to keep us in line? Or is she something far more sinister, lurking just beyond the veil of our reality? Welcome back to Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. This is Season 1, The Oleander Files, Episode 11, File Number 226, The Succubus. I am your host, Michael. Are you ready to begin? A succubus is a mythical figure originating in folklore and mythology, often depicted as a female demon or supernatural entity who seduces men, usually through dreams, to drain their life force or energy. The succubus legend has been present across various cultures, often serving as a cautionary tale about temptation, lust, and the dangers of unchecked desires. The historical origins of the succubus start with Mesopotamian myths. One of the earliest associations with succubi can be traced to Lilith, a figure in Mesopotamian mythology. She was considered a demon who preyed on men and newborns. In Jewish tradition, Lilith became associated with sexual temptation and rebellion against religious authority. In medieval Europe, during the Middle Ages, the succubus concept became more defined. In Christian demonology, succubi were seen as agents of the devil, who tempted monks, priests, and other holy men, leading them to sin. These entities were believed to appear as beautiful women in dreams to seduce their victims. In Islamic folklore, the Karina is a spirit believed to accompany humans. While not always harmful, some accounts liken her to a succubus, seducing men in dreams. The succubus has 3 main traits, starting with its appearance. They are often described as extraordinarily beautiful women with seductive features. Some legends portray them with demonic traits such as bat-like wings, horns, and even a tail. Their next trait, behavior. They typically seduce men through dreams or physical encounters. In some stories, a succubus can transform her appearance to match her victim's desires. And finally, their purpose. Succubi drain life energy or vitality from their victims, leaving them physically or spiritually weakened. In some stories, prolonged encounters will result in death. There have been a handful of stories from the past that have haunted historians and current monster hunters. For instance, In 13th century France, a group of monks in an isolated French monastery reported vivid, erotic nightmares involving a woman with glowing eyes and icy skin. Over the course of several weeks, 5 monks were found dead in their beds, paralyzed, their faces twisted in ecstasy and horror. The abbey was abandoned and the location sealed. It's said the woman still walks the ruined halls, seeking new, devout souls to tempt. In Victorian London, a reclusive painter became famous for portraits of an unknown woman, elegant, dark-eyed, and inhumanly beautiful. He claimed she visited only at night, inspiring him with whispers and touches. Over time, he wasted away, physically and mentally, obsessed with painting her image over and over. His final work, The Embrace, depicted the woman with monstrous wings and a split tongue kissing him as he bled from the eyes. He was found dead in front of it, mouth frozen in a crooked smile. In Chicago, a businessman traveling for a convention checked into a boutique hotel rumored to have room 606 permanently locked. He demanded to stay in it. That night, hotel staff reported strange sounds, moaning, banging, and the faint sound of wings flapping. By morning, he was found dead, spine arched unnaturally, eyes missing. Security footage showed no one entering or leaving, just a dark blur and a faint whisper, "You looked for me." And then there are all the sleep paralysis case files. Several modern-day victims across different countries report similar attacks while experiencing sleep paralysis. These symptoms vary, but are always similar. A heavy weight on their chest, a beautiful woman with sharp teeth and black eyes straddling them, paralysis and a rising sense of dread. Many victims wake up with unexplained bruises or scratches, and in rare cases, people never wake up at all. In modern culture, succubi have been reimagined and popularized in various media, including literature, movies, and video games. Often, they are portrayed as complex characters rather than purely malevolent beings. The succubi often symbolize the dangers of unlocked desire, the duality of attraction and danger, feminine power, and autonomy in controlling or influencing male behavior. This concept of a succubus has also been psychoanalyzed, with some scholars suggesting that the stories may have been rooted in explanations for sleep paralysis or erotic dreams throughout historical times. And according to my great Uncle Sam's file, they're exactly right. Now, as I've fallen deeper into this journey, into my great uncle's secret files, I feel like I've come to know the man he is, was, and tried to be. In this file, he was a good man, a strong man, but he carried the weight of the world's secrets on his shoulders. And when he failed, it tore him up. And the proof of that is in this file. Now, the Oleander files are made up of documents, photos, sketches, a couple audio files, and even some much scrutinized video. But the personal stories, the ones that really affected my great Uncle Sam, were always handwritten by him. This is one of those stories. I know he lived his life without regrets. How could you possibly do the job he did with regrets? But he's human. And like any man, sometimes you just wish you were better. This story involves a young private who he felt he had failed. And this is Private Mason's story, written in my great Uncle Sam's own words. The first time I met Private Mason, he was full of spirit, ready to do his government's bidding, eager to prove himself. And honestly, I felt a little too eager. And that's why I didn't take him 100% seriously. When he volunteered to help Squad 7734, I chuckled and shined him on. My team were well respected, tough, the best at what we did. So to even have the audacity to ask to join or train alongside of us without going through proper channels always rubbed me the wrong way. But at the end of the day, I had to give Private Mason props for the balls it took to even ask me. And that is the only reason I kept track of his career, even though it turned out to be much shorter than it should have been. All I know is I should have been there for that young man. Myself, my teammates, maybe we could have made a difference in his judgment and short-lived military career. Now, according to his commanding officers, Private Mason had been doing well for himself, but had recently began suffering night terrors. But he chalked it up to just some bad dreams. Nothing he couldn't handle. At least that's what the government thought when they sent him to his death. Now, Private Mason, he had seen a little bit of war, but nothing like what waited for him in the cold woods of a secret location known only as Black Ridge. The camp was hidden deep in the mountains of South America, unmarked on any map, a top-secret recon outpost that our government denied even existed. They were there to monitor strange radio frequencies, signals that had no origin, no logic, just patterns, pulses, and more recently, whispers. The new assignment started out promising for the young private, but his nights grew more frustrating as the night terrors continued and only seemed to get worse. Some of his fellow soldiers later said that they thought he was just suffering from anxiety, or maybe one too many drinks before bed. This was a high-pressure job, after all. But the young private soldiered on, and things seemed to be getting better when Mason drew night watch alone. He spent the evening chasing the moonlight as it cut through the skeletal trees that cast broken shadows over the forest floor. His breath steamed through the air as he paced the perimeter. And that was the first time he had heard it. Soft, melodic, almost like singing. One word. Mason. He froze. The voice seemed to drift from the pines, impossibly close. He swung his rifle toward the sound, but there was nothing, just the trees. And then suddenly, a sweet, rotten, familiar scent. He shook his head, tried to clear his air, and that's when she appeared, at the edge of the clearing. She was barefoot, naked, skin pale like bone, eyes glowing faintly amber through the darkness. Her long, straight black hair clung to her shoulders like wet silk. She smiled his way, but there was no warmth, no comfort behind that smile. Her lips were red and cracked like old wax. Mason should have shouted, should have called for help, radioed for backup. At the very least, he should have raised his weapon. He should have done anything. But apparently, his body couldn't move. As his limbs went heavy, a warmth pulled inside his chest, and he found himself drifting closer to her deadly hourglass. Suddenly, her hand, delicate and clawed, scraped along his cheek. Mason froze in fear. She said, "You've been dreaming of me." He shook his head. Yes. She cooed with a voice layered with 100 whispers. "Well then, I've come to end your waiting." Jagged, bat-like wings ripped from her back, striking up towards the moon with the popping of breaking bones before both wings wrapped themselves around Mason, tightly cocooning him in her embrace. His mouth fell open. Blood began to leak and seep from the corners of his eyes. His ears and nose quickly followed. And as the first waves of pain rattled through his body, in his mind, he wanted more, devoted to this beautiful death. In a feeble whimper, he tried to rally the rest of his strength, to call out for help, the terror crawling to get out, but his scream never left his throat. As her cold, naked body enveloped his, a bewitching shriek echoed through the mountains. By morning, Mason's corpse was found crumpled by the watchtower, his eyes still wide open, mouth frozen in mid-scream. He had no wounds, no blood. He was just drained. His skin was pale, stretched tight over his bones, like something had hollowed him out from the inside. The rest of the camp went silent. A nervous panic fell over the rest of the soldiers, until finally one of the officers reviewed the motion-triggered security cameras. At 3:33 a.m., the camera by the southern perimeter flared to life. It captured Private Mason's last moments. But more importantly, it captured her. A figure impossible in shape, both beautiful and grotesque. She was moving through the trees like a liquid shadow. Her wings unfurled in a slow, sick motion, spines jutting along the edges. Her attack only lasted a few moments, and when she was done, she let out a long, deafening screech before turning and looking back at the closest camera. Her unmistakable face was that of the legendary female demon, Succubus. Her eyes focused on the camera when finally she slowly smiles And then the lens of the camera cracks from the inside and the footage ends. They buried Mason with no ceremony, and that night, 2 more soldiers requested transfers, for they had started to have night terrors. The next day, my Uncle Sam and his team were brought in to clean up, and by the week's end, the camp was gone, burned, buried, erased. But the tape still existed, locked away in a vault beneath one of our most famous military strongholds. That was until my great Uncle Sam managed to get his hands on it. Now he ends this file with a warning. Apparently, over the years, he's watched this tape, wondering if there was anything he could have done to help Private Mason. But he understood it was too late, and this wouldn't be the only young soldier he'd see and lose to the paranormal underworld that he fought every day. And according to my great uncle, sometimes when the tape is played back, the beautiful and deadly succubus whisper still comes through the static, tempting you with 3 enticing words. I remember you. Now I bet you're wondering if this footage was locked away with the Oleander files. Yes, it was. It's in front of me right now. I've never watched it. I don't plan on ever watching it. But I will share this. When I read through this file the first time, for the next 10 days to 2 weeks, I kept waking up around 3 a.m. with very violent nightmares. Now I had a hard time remembering them, and I want to say that they were all different, but they all ended in the same way, with a pair of beautiful, seductive, and completely evil eyes staring at me. All right, listeners, I had a question for you. I've been getting a lot of feedback and a lot of suggestions for future content, and I had an idea. Would you guys be interested in like a listener mail episode where I just discuss some of your sightings, some of your stories? Now, I would change your names and the dates for your protection, but some of the emails and messages I've been getting have been downright crazy, scary, and I'm not going to lie, a little bit exciting, because they validate the journals that my great uncle and my father had left for me. So if that interests any of you, make your voice known. Email me at pbgharvest@gmail.com or DM me on Twitter or Blue Sky. As for an update on what's been going on in my life, I'd like to say it was better, but it's not. I mentioned I reached out to the local television studio. Well, they called me back and we set up an interview where they promised not to use my name or my likeness for protection. And I told them what I know and what I received. And I didn't tell them everything, but I told them enough to hopefully get the public behind me and some support from the local authorities who seem to be ignoring me now. Well, that interview was supposed to be shown on the local evening news, but it never aired. I reached out to ask what the holdup was, or were they saving it for something else, or did they need more info from me? And I was quickly told that they didn't know what I was talking about. Angry and confused, I demanded to talk to the studio manager, who politely told me that there was no interview, that I never came in, and that reporter no longer worked with that studio. It's making me doubt myself that I did the right thing and what my next step is. But what I do know is I'll keep releasing these episodes. I'm far from done. And for those of you who have my back, I thank you wholeheartedly. You don't know how much it means to me. My name is Michael. This is Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. This is Season 1, The Oleander Files. Our next episode will reveal the truth behind a newer nightmare that has actually been around for quite a while. The nightmare known as the Hat Man. Remember, monsters are real, but sometimes beautiful. But don't let that fool you.